One of the things that I think is really fascinating about Wakanda as a fictional construct is there's no getting around it. It was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby in 1966, and they're two middle-aged Jewish guys, right? Like, what are you doing thinking of a African near utopia? The idea that it was never conquered is something that happens in the latter day, as late as 1998, and then expounded on in 2000. But still, the germ of the idea is still there that this is a place that colonialism and imperialism had never touched. And I think one of the great things about Wakanda as a fictional construct is it speaks to this idea of a romantic, idealized homeland, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby were both American-born Jews, and we think about, the formation of Israel, no matter where you stand on the topic, and I realize it's a touchy subject, but, that is a dream realized, right? So I feel like psychologically, probably subconsciously, they were drawing on that stuff when they created Wakanda. I think what also happens throughout the Black Panther's publishing history is that every time a Black creator touches Wakanda, there are significant changes that happen to the texture of the material. So for me, being somebody of Haitian descent, it was really important to me to tap into that idealized notion of what a near perfect homeland would look like. Haiti is poor because it was being forced back. It was being forced to pay back reparations to France from the income they were not getting from slave labor. This happened for decades. This happened for, I think, about 100 years, if I'm remembering correctly. Those payments just stopped. Haiti was a political chess piece during the Cold War. The Duvaliers came to power because America did not want to have another Soviet outpost in the Caribbean, as was the case with Cuba. So these are real political factors that go into impacting the history of the place where my parents came from. One of the great things about writing Wakanda is you can imagine what happens if history is different. There's a line I wrote in one of the issues where T'Challa says, "History happened to me once. I didn't like it." And he's referring to his father dying at the hands of would-be colonialists. And that's something, that I think is always closer to surface if you come from a Afro-diasporan community. All our lives are broken connection to historical past is broken by virtue of the slave trade and white supremacy and all the things that descend from that. So the other thing that I drew on in terms of my personal background writing this character is Haitians are really proud. If you know any Haitian people, you're gonna get an earful about the history of the country and why it matters. And in the comics, Wakandans traditionally have been portrayed as isolationists and not all that friendly to the outside world. And I say that I was able to write Wakanda because I'm Haitian. Like the pride, clinging to pride when you sometimes have nothing else, clinging to pride when there is an entire world that is predisposed to misunderstand you and stereotype you. I knew that. I came of age in the 1980s, and there's that question that gets asked, semi-comedically, where were you radicalized, right? When were you radicalized? For me, it was during the AIDS crisis in the 80s, and I believe it was the FDA or maybe the CDC issuing guidelines not to take blood from Haitian people. And I marched with my mom and her friends who were nurses in hospitals behind that, because you can't paint an entire culture, an entire population with that broader brush, because it others them, it dehumanizes them. So that's the kind of stuff I brought to writing Wakanda. People who knew the Black diasporan history, what we experienced in the real world, what happened on the continent, and somehow had managed to isolate themselves from that. And as a result, they have a distrust of the outside world, and their politics are different because of it. And when T'Challa makes this decision to engage with the outside world, there's a lot of skepticism from the people he is entrusted with safeguarding at that decision.